Good afternoon. Welcome to YourTown. My name is Thomas Hood. I'm your host today, and we've been talking with prominent figures in Carmel by the Sea. And today, it's a real treat to introduce you to somebody that I've been working with here in Carmel, Dawn Dell, president of Carmel Heritage Society.
Hi, Thomas.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's a big title for such a small but mighty organization.
Well, I suppose so, yes.
Tell us a little bit about how Carmel Heritage got started.
Well, the rumors that I heard were that a group of concerned citizens used to meet at the Village Corner restaurant, and they got to talking about how Carmel was changing and how they wanted to keep Carmel, Carmel.
That's Dolores and 6th, is that right?
Dolores and 6th.
Okay.
Right, and so the restaurant's been around a long time. The organization's been around since, I believe, the late 70s. I came on board in the year 2000.
What got things started then? They're going to a favorite hangout, right?
Right.
For lunch or breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was on their mind, and what were they trying to accomplish? What was changing in Carmel that brought that forth?
Well, I just think that, Carmel has always had a reputation of, I want to move there because it's the way it is.
Okay.
But then once I move there, I don't want anybody else to move there. So they had this kind of, I heard that all during growing up and going to Carmel
they were the
High.
founders of the NIMBY movement, is that what you're saying?
I don't know what NIMBY movement is, but yeah, they were, they just wanted Carmel to keep its values. They wanted it to be hometown. They wanted, their little post office. They didn't want street numbers. They didn't want street lights.
So these could have been descendants of the Don't Pave Main Street movement that
I
wanted to keep it?
think a lot of them were founding families, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
the
fantastic.
Leidigs, for one thing. The Leidigs have been around a long time, and they do own the Village Corner restaurant. So, and they've been a great friend to us. They're our sponsor for a couple of events that we've done, and they've always been a great supporter for Carmel Heritage.
So it starts off at Village Corner over coffee saying, we don't want this town to change.
Right.
What can we do? And so it's not city funding. This is just members of the community.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then it was formalized. And tell us how that happened. This first Murphy House. Tell us the story behind that.
Well, the first Murphy House, which originally was built in 1902 by Michael J. Murphy when he was 17 years old.
For his grandmother, is that right? His mother and...
His mothers and sisters.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was located up on Mission Street. It was in horrible shape, and it was due to be demolished.
And it predated San Francisco earthquake.
Yeah, 1902.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was an area of preservationists around at that time named Enid Sales, and Enid got together and formed this group of backers, basically, and they raised the money to move the house, and they moved it down to the park that the city owned at Lincoln and 6th. And it was quite an event. I mean, they picked it up with a crane and they put it on a flatbed truck, and they had a parade and a picnic afterwards, and that became the home of the Carmel Heritage Society.
This sounds very familiar to what happened in Monterey. You may be aware of this, but the little St. James Chapel that's located up on right above downtown.
Right.
I can't think of the street off the top of my head. Monterey History and Art Association saved adobes by helping them find, they bought some.
Right.
They started the whole preservation movement, really, of the adobes. But the St. James Church was the only non-denominational structure where people could get together in Monterey other than the Basilica. And that was due for demolition as well.
Oh, wow.
And as I understand it, Ms. Donner, who was a member of the Monterey History Art Association, lobbied during a period of urban renewal in Monterey, and they moved that church up the hill. And that happened about the same time, I believe.
Well, if you want something to happen, you put together a bunch of people and make it happen. And so
you need a squeaky wheel to say, we got to do this.
Yes. Yes. We like our squeaky wheels.
Well, tell us, what does it mean to be a member of Carmel Heritage Society?
Well, basically, the Carmel Heritage Society, and it's gotten a little bit more active than it has been in the past. We do a house tour every year. We do an inns tour. We've done appraisal days. We have a scholarship we've given out in the past and again this year. And the members benefit because they get reduced prices on some of these things. They get advance notice before other people. We are a nonprofit, so their donation, if you will, is tax deductible. And all of our funding does come through our membership.
All right.
And we do have a couple of very nice benefactors who have left us a little bit of their estate, which has funded an endowment fund. So now we're kind of solvent, which is a marvelous feeling.
So this organization is really funded, it's self-funded.
Yes.
Its mission statement, it's ours to protect.
Correct.
And all this goes on in the first Murphy House from 1902.
That's our
And if
little
we bring up
clubhouse.
the images, you can. These are your world headquarters, right?
Oh, okay.
All right, let's see the world
That's the way you want to
headquarters.
put it? Okay.
Tell us, everyone, where this is located.
The house is located on the corner of Lincoln and 6th
Okay.
in the little park that's on the corner, and it also has the statue called the Valentine, which is the two older couples sitting on the park bench.
And the organization owns this building?
No, the city owns the building,
Okay.
and we lease it back from them for a small stipend a year, but we are responsible for the utilities and the phone service and that kind of thing. The city does maintain it for us.
Okay. Well, let's take a peek inside here.
Okay.
It's historic, 1902,
It
but
is
it has
historic.
a lot going on. There's the exhibit that we put together last year
This is the exhibit, and that's Michael Murphy there, and
as a strapping young man,
strapping young
entrepreneur.
man. Yes, yes, he was quite the guy.
Now, tell us about this exhibit a little bit. Here's another shot here.
The
What
ex-
does this do for the organization?
Well, the exhibit was devised to show Carmel as it was then and as it is now. And it has 3 segments. It has lifestyles, personalities, and architecture.
Okay, what we're looking at here is lifestyle.
Yes, and it lists a lot of the people who were here in the Bohemian era that were just, I mean, Sinclair Lewis, Jack London.
Look at this text.
yeah. It's
25 to 60% made their living from the arts. Artists, poets, writers, playwrights, actors, musicians, dancers, and designers. Some were creative bohemian folk. Though much has changed, much remains the same. Do we still have artists, poets, and writers and
I would say in
playwrights
abundance.
in town?
Yes.
In abundance.
In abundance.
So this organization really fosters a connection between then and now.
Yes, yes.
In an educational sense.
Yes, and we devised the exhibit so that we could change out certain segments. So the present exhibit has been up since March of last year.
Right.
And we now have a committee that's working on revamping or redoing 2 of the sections. So we will have new personalities and a new architect.
It's fair to say I'm on that committee.
Uh,
And,
we
I
would-
worked on that exhibit.
Yes, you did.
many,
Very,
many
very
hours.
hard. Yeah.
So a little
Yeah.
tap on my own shoulder.
Yes.
Paige Johnson came on board, graphic designer. And this is one of the spaces we put together here.
And this is a great shot, and it actually shows one of the architects who devised a house that we have on this year's house tour.
Leading Second Bay generation style architect that settled in Carmel.
Right.
And what we're looking at there is a couple of shots of his 3 houses he designed, including his permanent residence beginning in the early 1970s.
Right.
And we were able actually to get together some of his original drawings and, in a sense, create what might appear as his studio.
Right. And he did a lot with very angular. He was modern compared to a lot of what was going on in Carmel at the time. But he loved stained glass. He threw that in there. But his buildings are very angular and very interesting.
One of the things that I found really interesting about Henry Hill when we included him in the exhibit was trained in the Bay Area, went to Berkeley, so he had a West Coast undergrad education in architecture. Then he went east and stayed under Walter Gropius of the International Style in his first studio. So he's got this European modern background, and he's got the Bay regional background. And then when you look at his home down in Carmel, it's a culmination of those, both the East Coast, West Coast, and European influences.
Right.
His own life, his Scottish background. He loved to paint. Apparently, he was quite the socialite around town. And his home that's now being restored on Torrey Street, as I understand, that may actually be in our home tour next year. Is that correct?
We're working on it. We like to have a mixture of the old and the new, and to definitely have houses of note in there. So we have been very fortunate to have the Frank Lloyd Wright House on our tour several times, and it will be again on this year. And it's not open to the public almost any other time, so we're very fortunate that the family likes to work with
So
us.
Carmel Heritage, you're not politically advocating a position, but in a very benevolent sense, you're providing education by home tours and by the inn tours. They can see the prototypical Carmel cottage, a Comstock cottage,
Right.
which most people think all of Carmel looks like.
Yeah, little
But there's a
Hansel and
whole other
Gretel's.
side when you get behind the gates of some of these homes that are on the tour. Right?
Yeah. And we've had some very, very notable architects who have been around in this area for a long time. And we like to have them featured and give the public a little more idea of who they were and what they did. And I think that it's a valuable thing that we can extend and they can learn.
Well, I think as an architect, what's fascinating is at the time of this early jumpstart of growth, like in the mid 1920s, some of the best West Coast San Francisco architects came down and did commercial commissions, right? Before the crash and before they all kind of ran for the hills with lack of work, is they came down and did some of their best work down here, and they had to fit it within the context of the Spanish colonial revival. And I'm thinking about like the Cypress Inn and up the block there, right? Is that really created a downtown core that looks, it's still very viable today.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you have, you can literally look at pictures of Carmel from the 1940s and look at the same pictures of the same streets, and storefronts basically are the same.
Yeah.
The character of the town has been very well preserved. And I think a lot of credit for that goes to organizations like Carmel Heritage, the Carmel Residents Association, Yes for Carmel. All of us really are interested in keeping Carmel, Carmel.
Well, you've got the home tour coming up.
Yes?
I'm not on that committee, but
Should
I
have
think
been.
we've got a few images here.
Okay.
But kind of a sneak peek of what we're going to have coming up in June.
Okay.
Let's take a look at the first one.
Henry
Hill.
Henry Hill.
Out of
yeah.
our exhibit.
And this one is located in a beautiful grove of eucalyptus trees that were planted in the 1850s. So you can see the color there on the door. There's a stained glass window in the door, stained glass windows in the house. It's really quite something.
So this is one of our modernist buildings. Okay, now here, stepping back more so to the Spanish influence
Exactly.
in this area. Tell us about this house.
In
That's the
19
Herald.
Okay,
right?
it was built in 1931, and General Harrell was World War II, and he was one of the last commandants of the Presidio in San Francisco.
Okay, so you go from 1960s modernist with Henry Hill right outside the gate.
Right.
And then you're back in the neighborhoods. Here we're down around 13th Street.
We always try and get a mixture of different styles and different types, and we've been very successful in
How do
doing
you
that.
get these people to agree to this?
They are incredibly gracious, I have to say. It's certainly daunting to imagine 500 people going through your home, but we have a very dedicated volunteer group of docents. They are very mindful of the situation. They are very vigilant, and they control it, and it works like a charm.
So
Goes
this
off
is going
without
to
a
be a
hitch.
pretty complicated affair. Is you're self-funded,
Correct.
and the success of this event goes right to the bottom line is to sustaining the
Yes.
organization.
It's our operating funds.
And it's all on a volunteer basis to reach out to people that have homes in Carmel to open their doors and their gardens for people just to get a peek behind
Yes.
behind the gates.
Yeah, we did a very interesting one that wasn't on the home tour, but it was specific for our members. And one of our current board members, who wasn't a board member at the time, but she's a realtor, had a beautiful house, a Comstock house, down on Yankee Point Drive. And it was for sale. And she allowed us to give an open house to our members only, and we titled it A Peek Behind the Wall. And we had a nice little reception, and it was very well received. Our members were just thrilled. You don't often get to see places like that.
So you've really got people in the community with homes here that may have been in their family for years to trust the organization enough to say, I'll put it in your hands, and you bring through 500 people.
Well, Comstock's family did it, so we can't be all bad, you know?
We had one last image I want to come up of
Okay.
a house that's internationally famous, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Ah,
Let's
yeah.
just bring that one up again.
Yeah.
There we go, the Walker Residence,
The Walker
right on
Residence.
Carmel Beach.
Yes, this was built in 1948, and the only request from the woman who commissioned the house was that it should be fronted with Carmel stone and blend in and be one with the ocean. So
when I got to know Carmel Heritage, there's the living room of that
Yes.
space there. Walking into that space for the first time, it almost takes your breath away. Is you almost feel like you're literally coming out from underneath one of the rocks on the beach or like in a clamshell.
Well, and
It's just remarkable.
he almost designed the front of the house like the bow of a ship.
Right.
And the galley is very much like a ship's galley. In fact, with my first docing thing for Carmel Heritage was in the Frank Lloyd Wright house. And I was stationed in the kitchen. And it was about as big as this table.
Right.
And people would just, I mean, the house is not large. The addition that was put on in the back is probably the largest part of the house. But as you say, you walk into that living room and you look at that view and you just feel like you're like the lady on Titanic flying.
Possibly America's most famous architect, and it's
Yes.
on the Carmel Heritage Tour.
Yes.
How do people get tickets? And it's coming up very shortly.
It's on June 24th.
Okay.
It runs from 1 to 5 in the afternoon.
And how do they get tickets?
They can get tickets online through Carmel Heritage and
We'll bring up the website here for
okay.
folks. Okay.
You can call in
Right.
and order tickets. You can go to the First Murphy House. It's open weekdays, Wednesday through Saturday,
Right.
from noon to 3. So you can go and buy a ticket. And you can also buy a ticket the day of.
Okay. How much are tickets?
Members' tickets are $30, non-member tickets are $35, and all tickets on the day of the tour are $40. And then afterwards, we have this splendid reception, really, really nice, at the First Murphy House in the back patio, sponsored by the Village Corner, and
Right.
with live music and everything.
So they can go online, buy tickets. They can stop there the day, buy a ticket.
Correct.
They take the tour, work up a little appetite, and come back, and then you serve them food and wine.
Absolutely. Not well. We haven't worked out the wine yet, but the
All right.
food is definitely plentiful and delicious.
I really appreciate your coming
so
on
welcome.
today. We've been speaking with Dawn Dull, president of Carmel Heritage Society, and this concludes our series of movers and shakers in Carmel.
Oh, that's broad.
That help make Carmel a very, very special place. And Dawn, I want to thank you for coming on board today, telling us
you.
about Carmel Heritage,
My pleasure.
with the home tour coming up
Yes.
next month, and then you've got the Inns tour.
In stores in December.
All right. I want to have you back so we can talk more about that.
I'd
and
love
get a
to.
peek in some of the best places to stay in Carmel by the Sea.
It's the best ticket in town. You get food, you get wine, and you get a tour. So what the heck?
And a chance to win a free night in Carmel.
And a chance to win a free night
That
and
sounds
dinner.
great. Thanks again for joining us
You're
today.
welcome.